Yes, in Haiti, please mind your business. Story time. This one is brought to you by my uncle. This is a Lugao story, so things might get a little weird, but bear with me. So this lady, we're gonna call her Katya, okay? She is a SW. If you don't know what an SW is, just look it up. But that night, she was out on the street, running the streets, trying to sell some pussy. She was standing out there all day. She ain't had no customers. So it's getting late and she's like, you know what, maybe I should leave. But right at the moment that she's thinking that she's gonna leave, this guy in this rich, expensive car pulls up. And for that time, for somebody to have a car like that, that meant that that person had money, okay? It meant that that person meant business. So the car rolls up in front of the SW and he's like, yo, how much for? And she gives him the prices. Depending on what you want, I can provide it for you. He wanted to take her home. He didn't want service on the spot. So he wanted to take her to his house. So she agreed. She gets in his car and they start to drive away. Now the guy, there's really nothing suspicious or off-putting about him, considering like she's a SW. She's used to weirdos. She's used to creeps. So this is like, there's nothing standing out about this guy. He's on the steering wheel and she's next to him on the passenger seat. So they're driving, and yeah. And at some point, it looks like this driver is like basically falling asleep. Like he's just disassociating from the wheel and he looks like he's tired. She doesn't think anything of it and they keep going. They get a little bit further down the road. She saw something from her peripheral morph. So she does one of those and notices that the man who was driving the car turned into a dog with his two front paws on the wheel. This SW is witnessing a dog driving a car when a few seconds before it was a man. So the SW proceeds to take out her cigarette. She had a cigarette like in the back of her ear. She proceeded to take out the cigarette. She lights up the cigarette and starts to smoke. As she lights her cigarette, she starts to chant. She says, "Moi-même c'est petit Jacques Maget mieux. Pita au moins Jacques Maget." Jacques Maget is a loi. He don't play about his children, so I think that was just her reinforcing her protection. After she says that like 3 times, Jacques Maget c'est petit tout, the freaking dog next to him looks like something startled the dog, and the motherfucker started morphing back into a human. And now it's back to a man driving the car. Now, of course, the story does not end here. The man looks over to her and says, "I feel weird. Did you see anything weird? Do you feel anything weird?" The SW, looking straight ahead at the road, says, "Nope." He said, "You didn't sense anything?" She said, "No, I've just been in this car smoking a cigarette." She said, "Why? You feeling something?" He says, "Yeah, I felt a little weird, so I just wanted to know if you saw something, if you felt anything." She said, "Nah, I ain't see nothing. Must be something in the air." He proceeded to drive all the way to his house. She got there and was absolutely horrified. So while the guy went to go take a shower, she went into his kitchen, grabbed a knife, and kept it underneath her pillow. The whole time she was laying down like this, one arm underneath the pillow, holding on to the weapon. She would go on and do. She held on to that knife whole time, just in case. After they were done, it was way too dark and way too late for her to leave anyway. So she proceeded on staying the night, but she did not sleep all night. All night, she had that one hand under that pillow. The next morning, they woke up, he paid her, and she went on her way. But I was like, wait a minute, she went through with it? And she had to. If she had switched up anywhere in that timeline, that would have been it for her.
Tell me, what's the creepiest experience you ever had in your life and why you still think about that moment?
Another experience I had, and still think about it this day, was happened when I was about 10, 11 years old. My friend Widleen and I, we were playing outside as usual. We always play together. And, nighttime, it was time for her to go home. She grabbed her things and, made her way home. And as for me, I grabbed my things as well and, I made my way home as well. But when I got in front of my neighbor's house, I noticed there were 3 people sitting down in front of my neighbor's house. But they were playing hand drums. They were playing hand drums. The hand drums, they were playing really fast, but I couldn't hear anything. I got closer. As I got closer, they looked a little bit transparent, but I could still see them. I stood right in front of them because I was curious. I said, why are they playing and I can't hear anything? And I stood right in front of them. All 3 of them turned around and looked straight at me. and they were looking at me. They were very surprised, as if, can you see us? But I was just staring at them. At that point, I couldn't move anymore. I was just standing still, but very curious because I want to hear the hand drums. They continued to play. They were playing very vigorously. They played faster and faster and faster. I could just see them playing, but I couldn't hear them. So since I couldn't move, I was just sitting there. My mother, I guess, started looking for me. She found me standing still, looking at nothing, staring at basically nothing, because she couldn't see them. So when she said, "What are you doing? Let's go," I just looked at her. I said, "Mom, can you hear these 3 people playing?" She said, "What 3 people?" I said, they sitting right there. They're sitting right in front of me, and they playing hand drums." She already knew the deal. She grabbed me and went home. So, that was very scary. But that morning, when we woke up around like 6 o'clock, we woke up to screaming and crying. The man of the house passed away. He was a young man. There was nothing wrong with him. He was not sick. All of a sudden, he just died. I still think about that till this day.
Ask and you shall receive. Do you believe in voodoo and dark magic? Maybe you might change your mind after this true story. Story time. We're gonna call the person who submitted the story Julie, because I don't know if she wants to remain anonymous or not. So Julie says growing up, she wasn't really involved in anything involving voodoo. She has been more focused on church and her relationship with God. This is due to her grandmother, her mom's mother, being a very firm believer of God. Julie says she cannot emphasize how much her grandmother has held this family together through prayer. Get comfortable, because in order for this story to make sense, I have to take you guys back. So Julie's mother and father met through mutual friends. Eventually, they started to date and planned to get married. And this is when they had Julie. The pregnancy was hard for her mother, especially with the mistreatment that she was getting from Carol. Carol being the father's sister. Julie's mother never went into details about the abuse that she endured, but she told her little minor details about it. For example, when Carol would have guests over, they would drink, and her heavily pregnant mother would often be left to clean up huge clusters of bottles. Like, how you got a pregnant woman cleaning up after you? So after Julie was born, her mom and her dad's relationship did not last. And unfortunately, they went their separate ways. Julie went with her mom, and she ended up drifting from her father as if he was a stranger. So as stated before, Julie's relationship with God started as a child. Her relationship with God helped her a lot since she grew up with a lot of health issues. Julie and her mother would take frequent trips to the hospital, to the point where their own homes became like a mini clinic. They had so many antibiotics and prescriptions that had been given to her. And this girl is talking asthma, ulcers, an ear problem. She had to get surgery. They told her without the surgery, it can travel from one ear to the other, which would cause her to go deaf. And so much more that she can't even list. For example, one time she got sick and her grandmother took her to a new church. And the crazy thing is, the pastor mentioned Carol's name. This is a new church. They've never been there before. There's no way this pastor would have known about Carol. How would he know about Julie's father's sister? Nonetheless, this pastor told her that Carol, the dad's sister, was doing voodoo on Julie, and that she had a picture of Julie from when she was young. So Julie said that as good Christians, they prayed and put this issue behind them. Julie gets sick again. They go to a new church, and the same thing happened. Once again, they prayed and put the issue behind them. So this had happened when she was about 9 or 10. Because of this, in the back of her mind, she knew she had to be cautious of this lady. Later, Julie came to find out that her father inherited a piece of land that will most likely be passed down to Julie. And as you would assume, Carol, the father's sister, is not happy about this. Julie is not gonna get that land. Not if Carol can help it. Carol was working every angle to make sure that Julie does not get that land, because Julie found out that Carol, who had 2 children, a boy and a girl, had sent her older son to go live with Julie's father on that land. A strategy to get them closer, marking her territory. Now, when Julie gets to grade 6, she kept getting ill. This was strange because it was happening back to back. After 2 weeks, she'd get sick, go to the hospital, get treated again, and repeat. So they prayed a lot during this time, and her grandmother would call her and even pray on the phone with her occasionally. And this continued to happen until the end of the year. Julie started getting better and she can continue to go back to school. A few weeks later, Julie's mother finds out that Carol's son had tragically passed away. He had gotten sick and suddenly passed away. Julie believes that with prayer and great faith, whatever had been planned was reversed and heavily backfired. Wow.